In 2004, two Japanese researchers dropped a camera on a rope into the Pacific Ocean. 20 tries, nothing. On the 21st, an 8-meter-long monster attacked the bait, and for the first time in human history, a creature that was not supposed to exist looked straight into the lens. Most people think the giant squid is just a scary deep-sea animal that scientists have known about forever. Reality is, for 2,000 years, this thing was less real than Bigfoot, less real than the Loch Ness Monster. Scientists called it a fairy tale. And we only proved it existed because two guys refused to give up after 20 failed attempts. This is the story of the world's largest myth that wasn't a myth. The year is 350 BC. Aristotle is writing about giant squid. He calls them teuthos. He says they're as big as 5 men. Nobody doubts him because, well, he's Aristotle. Fast forward to around 1250. A Norwegian royal text called the King's Mirror describes a monster in the seas off Greenland. Sailors call it the kraken. Sailors describe it as an island that rises from the water until it's not an island anymore. It's a living thing with arms the size of ship masts. For the next 600 years, every sailor who crosses the deep ocean comes back with the same story: dark shapes moving under the hull, tentacles thicker than a man's waist, eyes the size of dinner plates, glowing in the dark. And for 600 years, the people on land nod politely and do not believe a single word. By the 1800s, the giant squid was officially a joke. Sailors were just drunk, or bored, or both. The scientific establishment drew a hard line. You cannot have an animal that large living in the ocean with zero physical evidence. If it existed, we would have found a body. Every few years, a dead giant squid would wash up on a beach, and scientists would shrug and call it a weird octopus, or a whale part, or just ignore it entirely. In 1857, the Danish zoologist Japetus Steenstrup finally looked at the evidence and said out loud what sailors had been saying for 2,000 years: this animal is real. He named it Architeuthis. And most of his colleagues called him an embarrassment to science. 1873, Newfoundland. A fisherman named Theophilus Picot is out in a small boat when he sees something floating in the water. He hits it with a hook. It hits back. The thing wraps 2 tentacles around the boat and tries to pull it under. Picot grabs an axe and hacks off the tentacles. He brings them to shore. They're 19 feet long. Now the bodies start piling up. Giant squid washing ashore in Newfoundland, New Zealand, Norway. Scientists can't ignore it anymore. There are actual corpses. But here's the thing. They were all dead. Every single one. No human had ever seen a living giant squid in its natural habitat. Not once. In 2,000 years. And here's the clue that should have told us they were real the whole time. Sperm whales, the only animal that hunts adult giant squid. They wash up with sucker scars the size of your face, circular wounds, some 2 inches deep. Something was fighting those whales in the dark. Something huge. September 30th, 2004. 2 Japanese researchers, Tsunemi Kubodera and Kyoichi Mori, are floating over the Ogasawara Trench, about 600 miles south of Tokyo. They've been doing this for years, dropping a camera on a rope, leaving bait, waiting, nothing. On this particular day, they tried 20 times, 20 drops into the black, 20 times pulling the camera back up with nothing on it but seawater. Most people would have gone home. Kubodera dropped it a 21st time. The bait is at about 900 meters, nearly 3,000 feet down. That's where the sunlight stops. That's where the pressure is 90 times what you feel on land. And that is where an 8-meter-long giant squid, 26 feet, attacks the bait and gets its tentacle caught. The camera fires. Click. One frame, the first photograph of a living giant squid in human history. The squid struggled for 4 hours trying to free itself. When it finally broke loose, it left behind a piece of tentacle, still twitching, on the hook. Kubodera brought that photo back to the surface. 2,000 years of stories, 600 years of scientists saying no. And all it took was one image. So what do we actually know about Architeuthis? Here's the 5-second version. They live in every ocean. They have some of the largest eyes in the animal kingdom, bigger than a dinner plate, designed to spot the faintest glow in total darkness. They can grow to at least 43 feet long. Their only natural predator is the sperm whale, and they have 3 hearts. 3. 1 for the body, 2 for the gills. Also, their esophagus passes directly through their brain, which means if they eat something too big, they can give themselves brain damage. So this is not just a story about a big squid. We have mapped the surface of Mars in higher resolution than we have mapped our own ocean floor. About 80% of the ocean is unexplored. 80%. We discovered the giant squid, an animal the length of a school bus, with eyes the size of basketballs, living in every ocean on Earth, in 2004, not 1804, not 1904, 2004. The biggest myth about the giant squid wasn't the squid itself. It was the idea that we had already found everything worth finding. Humans need monsters. We need to know that something bigger than us is still out there, in the dark, where we haven't looked yet. Because if something that big can hide for 2,000 years, what else is down there? Next episode, we're covering a predator that was so perfect at hiding, scientists didn't believe it existed for 100 years, because every single report was too ridiculous to be true. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. BareBones. Simple stories about the weirdest things that actually happened. Think about that chain. Aristotle described it in 350 BC. Norwegian sailors called it the kraken. For 600 years, fishermen came back with the same story, and for 600 years, nobody believed them. Steenstrup put his name on the line to say it was real, and his own colleagues laughed him out of the room. And Kubodera dropped a camera into the dark 21 times because he believed the fishermen were right. Every person in that chain was told they were wrong. Not one of them stopped.